It is that time again, the time where I will ask a series of hard-hitting, provocative questions, some of them about football, some of them not, to Dominique Foxworth, and he must answer them whether he wants to or not. Here we go. First, Neek, is this a make-or-break season for Tua Tagovailoa?
I'd say no. Like, he's a first-round draft pick. As long as he's not just atrocious, I think that they will stick with him, because what is the alternative? I know they have the draft capital to make some moves and maybe move up in the draft, but everything we've heard about the quarterbacks in next year's draft is that there's nothing special necessarily there. And I guess they could try to make a move to find another quarterback to bring in, but I think as long as Tua shows some improvement, they'll stick with him.
All right, this is one I'd like to come back to because I don't think I see it the same way. In the meantime, let's speak of three quarterbacks we haven't seen yet. Which of these three starts the most games this year? Trey Lance, Justin Fields, or Mac Jones?
I think it's got to be Justin Fields. I think Mac Jones probably starts the least amount because they have Cam Newton and they believe in Cam Newton to some degree, and there's not a ton of pressure. They kind of were surprised to get a quarterback, but that's different. It's all different in Chicago. They have jobs and careers riding on how well this team does, and I don't think that Andy Dalton is the guy that anybody necessarily believes in to be able to lead this team into the future. So I think they turn to Justin Fields earlier than anyone else. I think Justin Fields is the only quarterback that I look at, of these three quarterbacks, he's the quarterback that I look at is most likely to start in week one.
Okay, interesting. That's not the way they're positioning it there, so we'll talk about that. Finally, I want to show this again because I continue to be just startled by it. Fernando Tatis Jr. in what can only be described as one of the most athletic things I've ever seen a person do spontaneously, doing a split, and that's not even all of it. Just what he does with his back leg, I don't know how to describe it. So here's my question to you. In your athletic prime, could you have done that?
Absolutely not. You can break that down into two parts. There's the leg wobble at the beginning. I don't think I could do that without tearing any ligaments. And then there's the split. I could do that under no circumstances. I don't care how warm my body is. I don't care how much practice I got. I could never do the split, nor would I try. And then just a surprise split, I'm tearing all the muscles in my groin. We have a problem. So that's more impressive than a home run to me, because we see that much less frequently than we see a home. Oh, God, it hurts to watch, too, Green.
It does. I mean, that video, to me, it should come underneath it like forced retirement. Like the player involved in this has retired due to injuries from which he will never recover, psychological and otherwise. It remains one of the most amazing things I think I have ever seen. All right, Neek, well done. Meanwhile, let me get Jeremy Fowler in here because there's a bunch of football news I want to run through quickly. And Jeremy, let's start in Dallas. What is the latest on Dak?
Well, Greeny, the Dallas Cowboys have been really impressed with how Dak Prescott has looked in OTAs. I talked to somebody over there who said it doesn't feel like he's rehabbing separately from the team anymore. It just feels like he's part of the huddle, doing Dak things, throwing the ball around. And they gave him a full practice, a full workload. The next step is pushing off on that ankle with commotion in the pocket. They feel good about that, though. Let's go to Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. They're taking it a little slower with him. He didn't get any 11-man work last week, but that was for the whole team. But I'm told he is pushing the limits, that if they give him 10 things to do in his rehab, he does all 10 and asks for an 11th. He's already developed a chemistry with Jamar Chase from their LSU days. They've been throwing the ball around, so they believe Burrow is in a great place, on track for training camp to be pretty much a full go. Now, Odell Beckham. I talked to somebody who trains at Exos in Arizona, a veteran player who was around Beckham as he was rehabbing. He said Odell's doing Odell things again. He's moving around, looking like a freaky athlete. So that's good news for Cleveland. The Browns have been keeping abreast of his progress. He has not been in Cleveland, but he's expected to come back in minicamp sometime around mid-June. And his $14 million salary is mostly guaranteed for injury, so no more trade rumors. It's all about unlocking his potential in that offense.
All right, so that is fascinating to me. Let me bring everybody. So, Nick, and I'm going to come back to you here. So this is a team that the second half of last season looked just about as good as anybody. They made a nice, respectable playoff run. They were right there with Kansas City at the end. And now they're going to add, to quote Jeremy Fowler, Odell doing Odell things. What is to stop a person, Dominique, from saying the Browns look like a Super Bowl team with Odell?
I mean, nothing except for their secondary and their quarterback. I think that Baker Mayfield shows some improvement, but I think he needs to take another step. And I think Odell can help with that. That offense had trouble creating big plays in the passing game. And Odell Beckham is a walking big play. Like, you throw him a slant, he can go all the way to the crib. Yeah. He can get behind your defense. So I think what stops them is Baker Mayfield. But Baker Mayfield, I know some people believe he's better without Odell Beckham, but nobody's better without this freak athlete out there making those big plays and committed to win the way that we all know he is.
But to your point, you think this is more about Baker than it is about Odell no matter what happens?
Yeah, absolutely. We know that quarterback is the most important position on the team. I think they need to improve defensively, but the real difference is going to be when you get in those situations where everyone knows you have to pass. You can't rely on your running game and you're under pressure. Can you make 5 or 6 big plays in a playoff game or in a couple playoff games? That's what we need to see from Baker Mayfield. And obviously, it's not all on him. It's going to be important for them to have the right plays and the right players out there. But that's the guy who we're going to be looking at needing to take another step forward in order to make them a real Super Bowl contender.
So there's that. And then, Ninko, there's the other side of this. I thought it was really interesting. We were having a conversation before we came on this morning. You had that injury. You had a torn ACL, and the way sometimes that can impact the player's perspective on things.
Yeah, so Odell could have been injured, had his injury, recovering from his ACL, and is even more motivated to get back out there and to be even a better player. And look, you think about an injury, when you're an NFL football player, sometimes you become invincible. You think, oh, well, I've been playing a long time. And for me personally, when I had my ACL, it really made me realize that this game isn't guaranteed. There's nothing about this game guaranteed. So when you have to go through an injury like an ACL, your recovery is long. It's not easy. I know nowadays everyone's like, oh, he tore his ACL, be back in 8 months. Yeah, it's still 8 months of rehab, getting your body back to where it used to be. So this could potentially be a motivating factor for Odell, getting him back better than he was before. So, you know, the one thing about the league, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. So for him having an injury, he's trying to be better, probably trying to be better than he ever was. So it could be a scary thing to see him out there.
Sorry about that, Ninko. I kept talking over the end of your thought. That's my fault. Jeremy, put a ribbon on this thing here as far as the expectations on Odell.
Well, they just want to get him in a position where he can make plays. This is a run-heavy offense, and that's the biggest challenge. You ask people around the league, they say Odell might be better suited for a pass-happy attack where you can go 4 or 5 wide receivers and just let him loose. So the Browns, it's about finding a sweet spot to get him some splash plays, some deep downfield passing, some easy screens where he can go break a 50-yarder. They did a little bit of that. Kevin Stefanski wants to unlock that even more, and they know they have a top 5 receiver when he's healthy. They want to get him back to that position in a big way.
All right, that seems to be one of the spots to watch most closely as we continue. Meanwhile, let's get up and go through the action of a busy weekend, and it begins with congratulations for Helio Castroneves. He has joined the Indy 500's most exclusive group by becoming the 4th 4-time winner, celebrating by scaling a fence yesterday, won it in front of 135,000 fans, the most at any sporting event since the start of the pandemic. Elsewhere, golf, Jordan Spieth really struggled on essentially his home course yesterday at the Colonial. The Dallas native leading going into the final round in Fort Worth, wound up shooting a bogey-filled 3 over par 73 and finished behind Jason Kokrak, who shot an even par 70 to get the second win of his career. And after winning her first round match at the French Open, Naomi Osaka followed through on her promise to skip a mandatory post-match press conference. She was fined $15,000. Tournament officials have threatened to kick her out if that media boycott continues. Coming up tomorrow night, Skylar Diggins